Following a spike in anti-Semitic assaults late last year, New York lawmakers are vowing to take additional measures to keep the Orthodox Jewish community safe. Several members of Congress are in Cedarhurst, New York, where they've met with local officials to discuss a way forward. Let's listen in.
Because of a deeply disturbing spike in anti-Semitic violence that has plagued our community over the past several weeks. So I am here this morning to provide reassurance in the strongest possible terms that we will do everything we can at the federal, state, and local levels of government, because we are all New Yorkers, and an attack on one religious, racial, or ethnic group is an attack on all of us, and we will not tolerate it. In the wake of the stabbing in Muncie, the shooting in Jersey City, and the reports of anti-Semitic incidents occurring across the New York City metropolitan area, it has never been more important to speak out against this hate-fueled violence. These vile targeted attacks on our Jewish community must be met with swift, strong, and widespread condemnation. And that is why we must all stand up together and state unequivocally that anti-Semitism has no place here on Long Island, in New York, or anywhere else in this country. Regardless of whether it comes from the left, right, or center, we can never afford to be silent in the face of bigotry. Let me be clear, words are not nearly enough. We also have to take action. So in Congress, there is a lot that we are doing to address this issue. I personally, and I know some of my colleagues up here, have continuously supported the nonprofit security grant program that brought us a lot of security right here in this community, and I know in the communities of my colleagues as well. Last year, it provided $1.7 million for 17 Jewish organizations, synagogues, and schools just in this district alone to secure their facilities against a potential attack. Now, to strengthen the nonprofit security grant program, I know some of my colleagues co-sponsored the Securing American Nonprofit Organizations Against Terrorism Act, which has passed both the House and the Senate with strong bipartisan support, and it has authorized $75 million in funding for the program. I have asked the White House to swiftly sign this bill into law, and I will continue to advocate for more funding for this life-saving program. We must also address the issue at the root cause by stopping the spread of hate and intolerance. And that's why the piece of legislation that I think is so incredibly important, called the Never Again Education Act, which is a bipartisan bill to expand Holocaust education training and resources for teachers across the country. In a very short period of time, there will no longer be any Holocaust survivors. And so one of the programs that we have here is it connects high school students to survivors so they can be told about their story, so they can learn about it and understand what happened in the Holocaust. It's so incredibly important for that program to continue, because there will come a time when there are no survivors from the Holocaust, and we have to make sure that their story lives beyond them. Education is truly the best tool that we have available to prevent history from repeating itself. And by ensuring our children learn about the atrocities of the Holocaust and the meaning of genocide. I was pleased the fiscal year 2020 appropriations bill for the Department of Homeland Security included $10 million for targeted violence and terrorism prevention grants to provide state and local stakeholders with resources to prevent attacks before they occur. We must place bipartisan pressure on the department to provide additional resources for this office and the Countering Violent Extremism program that has been so incredibly successful in addressing this issue. Finally, I am pushing for increased federal funding to support state and local hate crimes investigations and prosecutions, so our officials in New York and on Long Island have the resources they need to effectively combat this threat. I know that the county executive and the police commissioner, both of whom are here today, and given my background as DA, it's incredibly important that we get every local official the support that they need to prosecute these crimes, because that's the way that you send the most powerful message, is by saying when these crimes occur, they're going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And the federal government can help local authorities prepare for just those kind of prosecutions. Now, as one of your representatives in Congress, I will keep fighting for these priorities and other initiatives to fight anti-Semitism, combat hate crimes and domestic terrorism, and protect our communities. Everyone in our community deserves to feel safe. Now, there's a lot going on in Washington right now, but I have to say, when I wanted to put this event together, every single one of my colleagues up here said, tell me when and where. That is how strong your support by your federal officials is in Washington, and certainly here locally. So I want to thank every single one of my colleagues here, and you'll see this is a bipartisan group. One of the things I'm very proud of that we do here on Long Island is, and in two parts of the city, we get together on a bipartisan basis because on issues like this, this is not about politics. This is about doing the right thing. And I'm very grateful to all of my colleagues for being here. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Congressman Peter King.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. And let me thank you for your leadership in bringing all of us together here today. I think, in fact, you do see the entire Long Island delegation, Republican and Democrat, standing as one. It shows how important this issue is to us, how essential it is that all of us speak out against the evil of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is not just an attack upon Jews. It's an attack on all Americans. It's an attack on all humans. And it's so essential we stand strong, we stand as one. And I want to again thank the County Executive, Laura Curran, Commissioner Pat Ryder for the work that they're doing. We in Congress are going to do all that we can. I worked with Kathleen in the Homeland Security Committee. For a while I was in the majority, now she's in the majority, but it doesn't change the fact that we work together on all issues involving counterterrorism in New York, and particularly providing the grants for the institutions here, to make sure that money goes out. I think Kathleen said it was $1.7 billion in the last budget. We have to continue that type funding, make sure that all houses of worship and other institutions are protected from all sorts of any type of hate crime. So again, I'm proud to be here today. I thank Kathleen for her leadership and bringing us all together. And I can assure you that no matter what else you hear going on in Washington, when it comes to the issue of anti-Semitism, we stand as one. This has to be destroyed, it has to be crushed, and we will do all that we can, working with state and federal and local officials to make sure that its ugly head is severed once and for all. So again, Kathleen, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Happy to introduce our colleague, Congressman Greg Meeks.
Let me also thank Kathleen for bringing us all together. I wish it was not for issues like we have to deal with today, but it is extremely important when we have issues like we have today that we all come together, because there's a cancer that is going on in our city, in our state, on the island, and in our country. And we've got to cut it out. We have to all, and we are, that's what this example is today, stand together. Because as Peter said, when you see acts of anti-Semitism and hatred, it's not just against the Jewish community, it's against all of us. And all of us have to stand and make sure that the world knows that we're not going to tolerate it. We've got to cut this cancer out and let individuals who are anti-Semitic and commit anti-Semitic acts, that we will not tolerate it, and it is not acceptable. And it is important that all of us have a voice. We cannot allow just the Jewish voices to be heard when we hear and see anti-Semitism. It's important for all of us. It's important for me as an African American to make sure that the world knows, and those who are full of hate, we will not stand for it. And we're coming to make sure that you pay for your crime, and others to know that good people will outweigh those full of hate. Dr. King once said that there will come a time where we won't remember the actions of some of our enemies, but the lack of voices of our friends. So I want to make sure that this message gets out, that we all stand with my brothers and sisters of the Jewish faith, because in this country that I love, we cannot accept the fact of what I've seen escalate in our country and around the world. We've got to stand up. We've got to speak out until this cancer is cut out, because a threat and anti-Semitism and hatred anywhere means that we are all endangered. So again, Kathleen, for bringing us together. This is not a black, white, Asian, Latino, Republican, Democrat, independent issue. This is a human issue. This is an issue about all of us. And we must all stand together and fight anti-Semitism and hatred with all that we have. It is our time that we must do this and let nothing stop us or get in our way. Thank you.
Congressman Lee Zeldin.
Thank you first off to Congresswoman Kathleen Rice for bringing us all together this morning. It's great to be with all of my colleagues. Important words have been spoken by them already, powerful words just now from my colleague Gregory Meeks. It's important and for all of us as Americans to understand that it is a bedrock principle to be able to peacefully and freely, safely practice, observe your religion. And what we witnessed over the course of this past Hanukkah with violent attacks targeting Jews, sometimes in their homes, sometimes on their streets, or in their synagogues, is a moment in time for all of us to come together, and as Greg says, regardless of your background, for all of us to stand up with each other, to speak out, to identify this threat, and to crush it. Kathleen spoke about some important initiatives that I fully support and we all should be behind, whether it is increased education for those who are desperately in need of it, whether it's adults now or that next generation behind them. The need to secure places of worship even better. It's important for our colleagues, whether they are in an elected office or they are community leaders in and around the New York City area, if they have not yet spoken up at all, you're wrong. We have some colleagues who are leaders in their community who still have not said anything about what's going on. Everyone's voice needs to be heard. We also need to oppose efforts that sometimes in the name of a particular position, people end up getting targeted with blatant anti-Semitism. The House of Representatives almost unanimously recently took a position in opposition to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. We hear stories of college students on campuses from coast to coast being targeted with blatant anti-Semitism in the name of BDS. We have to support our law enforcement. We have to ensure that we are giving them all the tools that they need to do their jobs effectively. We also just have to let the community know how much we have their backs. And it's also important, in my opinion, and I'm not going to attempt to speak for the diverse group that's behind me, but I think that these people, these suspects, these criminals, should be shamed for what they have done to ruin Hanukkah in the New York City area this past December. And if there's anyone who's outstanding, who has not yet been apprehended, put their names and their faces out there for the public to see. I need an important message to be sent. We all need, this entire group in this room needs an important message to be sent. To anyone who's thinking of an act targeting a Jew, that this is not going to be an isolated incident that no one will ever find out about. It will be something where you will be made an example of, that you will be punished, you'll be used as a deterrent for others. And let this morning be a powerful message to be sent to anyone thinking about carrying out one of those acts, that there's a diverse group of conservatives and liberals, Republicans and Democrats, federal officials and local officials. We will stand together united. We will stand up. We will speak out. We will identify that threat. And if you are that threat, you will be crushed. Because this scourge of anti-Semitism is one that may have made some effort to try to ruin Hanukkah in 2019. But Hanukkah in 2020 is going to be one that needs to and better not look anything like the one that just passed. And it's because of the support of everyone in this room that's possible. And again, it's with the leadership of Kathleen Rice that we're all here together this morning. So to her and to all of my colleagues for being here, it's an honor to serve with you in this important effort. We have important work still ahead. And if you're out there and you're a leader in your community and you have not yet spoken up, get off the sidelines. We need you.
Thank you. We've been watching a news conference on the local and federal response to a recent uptick in anti-Semitic crimes in our area. Lawmakers met on Long Island today in the wake of the vicious attack on a group of people celebrating Hanukkah in Rockland last month. A grandfather remains in critical condition today after being stabbed repeatedly with a machete that day. On Long Island, a Holocaust memorial was targeted and vandalized with hateful graffiti last month. And since December 23rd, there have been 13 alleged anti-Semitic assaults in New York City. Lawmakers today say they're working to secure more grants and federal funding to provide resources for enhanced security and ways to combat threats, especially at schools and religious institutions. Also speaking of several pieces of legislation, including a bipartisan bill to expand Holocaust education training, together condemning anti-Semitism and pledging renewed action against hate crimes and domestic terrorism.